Right guys, so I'm just trying to find a decent access to this crank position sensor, which is down there buried somewhere around the start motor area. I've been down the pit and I've took the under tray off because some people say that this is easier to get to from underneath, but then I've seen on other forums where people say it's easier to get to from the top. So I've took the under tray off and I can't even see the crank position sensor from underneath. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start to take off some of this airbox, try and make a little bit of room, see where we get to. I'm going to take some of this off now and see if I can access this from the top. Right, so that was a bit of a mission. I have had to take the airbox off as well. Now the problem with this car is some of these M3s, the manual ones, you can get to this sensor from the bottom. But the problem I've got is this is an SMG version, so you've got the SMG pump there for the gearbox, which is completely in the way of gaining access to the crank sensor. And even with all this off, it's still an absolute nightmare to access. There's no way I was getting that from the bottom at all. Give you a look, see if you can see it. The crank sensor is just down there. It's hard to see from here. You can just about make it out, and it's buried right down there. So as I was saying, even with all this off, this is still going to be a mission to get this out. So I'm hoping I can just about squeeze my fingers in there and get that sensor out. So let's have a go. Right, so I've ended up having to take the starter motor off as well, which was situated there, because what was happening was the bolt head for that crank sensor, which you can see now, which is that sensor there, the bolt head has started to round off. So if I go any further and strip that head completely off, I'm absolutely knackered, and it feels really tight all the way out as well. So I'm going to give it a bit of a spray, work it in and out a bit, and then hopefully I can now get better access to get at it and tap the Allen key socket into the hole, because before you just couldn't get to it. Absolute nightmare. And let me tell you, that starter motor was an absolute nightmare to get off as well. So anyway, a bit of better access now, so let's see if we can get this sensor out. Well, thank God for that. That was tight all the way out until the last couple of threads. As you can see there, the head was ready for rounding off. So I had no alternative, I had to take the starter motor off for that one. But that has now, hopefully, released this sensor, which is probably tight as well, just like everything else has been on this job. So there it is, crankshaft position sensor. So now to do it all in reverse and put the new one in. So we have our new crank sensor here. This is a genuine BMW one. I didn't want to mess around with aftermarket sensors, to be honest. There's not much in stock of these anyway. I did have a ring around, but I thought for what it is, I don't want to be doing this job again. I want to make sure it's right. So we've got a genuine sensor, so we know it's a good quality, correct sensor for the car. So now we're going to pop that in there and then do all this again in reverse, put it all back together. Right, so that is everything back on. I've been underneath and put the under trays back on as well. I've topped up the SMG pump fluid with some CHF oil. And I've also topped the coolant up because I had to remove one of the heater matrix hoses just to get some extra room while I was taking the starter motor off. So that's all now topped back up. So the next thing to do is to just connect the battery back up. I did disconnect the battery while I was removing the starter motor for obvious reasons. So we'll pop the battery back on. We'll go for a start. Hopefully it'll fire up. There we go. There we have it. It runs. I'm going to let this warm up for a little bit and then just have a check round for any leaks and stuff. I'm going to give it a quick little bit of a wipe down just where I've got some oily handprints and stuff. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some masking paper. I'm just going to run a bit of a mask edge around these headlights. I'm going to give them a quick wet sand, some 3000 sandpaper, and then give them a bit of a polishing up. As you can see, they are quite faded. Quite a common thing with plastic headlights, so give it a quick sanding down with some wet and dry 3000s, and then we'll hit it with some polish and hopefully get these up good as new. Right, so I'll give them a quick polish. They come up a hell of a lot better. They're still not perfect. I think they could do with a little bit more sanding. I might have to go down to, start with 1000s, then 2000s, and knock it down to 3000s and get the little machine polish on them. But definitely an improvement. There's still a couple of little marks in them, so we'll come back to that. Now, all that's left to do next is to take this out for a test drive. We'll give it a good run around for half an hour and see if it will continue to run and not cut out on me. So I'll be back with you soon. I'm going to take this out for a run. Right, so unfortunately I've just set off up the yard there and it's come on with traction control light and the EML light, and it's gone into a limp mode. So it seems we've fixed the crank sensor fault. I've just plugged it back in and the crank sensor fault is no longer there. However, we now have a fault that's returned for the throttle position sensor, which fortunately I did get from BMW this morning, which I've got right there. So I'm just going to pop this old one off here now and try that new one. Personally, I can't see how that's going to bring up a traction control light, but yeah, we're going to try that anyway because it has come up with the throttle position sensor fault. So I'm just going to bang that on, see if that fault clears. I'm not sure if these need to be calibrated, so I'll have to look through the functions on the laptop and see if there's a calibration option for that. But I'm just going to pop it on, see what happens, try and take it up the yard again, see if it goes into limp mode again. If it does, then we fix one fault, but fortunately we might have another. So let's see how we get on. Right guys, well I've just been out for a run. That seems to have cured that now. There's no warning lights on. I've rescanned the car. There's no faults logged back in the system, and it pulls like an absolute train now, so, and it hasn't cut out. So happy days. I think that now is sorted. The running gear wise, engine wise, all seems pretty good in this now. A little rev for you. So sweet as a nut. See there, no warnings. Only one on this for the handbrake, and obviously my door's open. So all good with that. Now, coming off the last episode, there's a few people messaged in there saying that I will be making a mistake changing this from an SMG to a manual. So drop us some comments and let us know your thoughts on this. Should I change this into a 6-speed manual, or do we leave it with the SMG box? There's actually no issues with this box. It runs, drives absolutely fine. There's no faults with it. Everything works as it should. The flappy paddles work. The auto selection works. Everything works. So I'm not entirely sure now whether I'm making the right decision changing this out for a 6-speed manual. So drop us some comments, let us know your thoughts on that, guys. Do we leave it as SMG or change it to a manual? So there is a few other bits and bobs which I'm going to be doing on this car. Stuff like this where it's gone a little bit rough, we're having this redone, and bits like this where it's worn off. Just tidies it up a little bit inside. Same again there. Just little bits like that let the car down. So obviously the rear view mirror's broke as well, so we need to get one of them. So there's a few other bits and bobs that I'm going to do to this, and like I say, I'm in two minds now whether to change this. So we'll see where we go with that. We're going to leave this episode here, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, drop us some comments, let us know what you think. Give us a like, give us a share. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all in the next video, guys.